Hello Instagram. So here's me over at the studio on a Sunday afternoon. I needed to do computer work tomorrow, so I came in this afternoon to unload a bunch of stuff out of my car from a shoot we did yesterday with Lavinia and Louise, and I'm making my little weekly arrangement that I do for a Alzheimer's care unit over here close to the studio. So I keep it pretty simple for that. It just kind of sits in their front entryway. But I'm going to see if I can get this phone adjusted to kind of show you a little bit of just a simple fall arrangement, kind of using what I had at the studio today. Kind of what I'm starting with is just kind of some leftover pieces of foam that I've wet in a bucket. Just let them float in a bucket of water with a little bit of floral food in it. You never want to push your foam down into your water because it'll create air pockets in your foam, and then you'll notice later on that parts of your arrangement are not staying alive because they're not actually getting water. So I let that soak in there. It doesn't take very long. I check to see that there's not any more bubbles coming up into the water in the bucket, and that usually tells me that I've filled the whole piece of foam with water. It's nice and wet. It's actually going to provide some water up into the stems, but I always do tell customers when they buy a piece that's made in foam, especially if it's a client doing like a holiday piece or an event piece that they want to keep, to go ahead and not be afraid to add a little bit of water every day. You know, maybe a quarter of a cup. It kind of depends on the size of the arrangement, how much foam is in it. But if you do that, you'll notice that the foam will somewhat continue to take water up into it and then continue to give water to your floral and keep it alive longer. From experience, I know that certain flowers do better in foam than others. Things like roses actually do not last very long in foam. Their stems block up really easily, and then they don't continue to take water. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and show you. So what I did was I lined this wooden box that I have with kind of a aluminum foil type material, because these boxes I have discovered tend to take up water very easily, unfortunately, and then I can't really reuse them for in a wedding or event or that type of thing. But I've lined it with this, kind of had some leftover pieces I taped together really well with some waterproof tape, and then I tucked them down in here. I went ahead and left my edges hanging out because we're going to trim that off anyway. And then inside of that liner I went ahead and did another piece of just a thin plastic, just to kind of make double sure that I wasn't going to end up soaking water through into my box and ruin it. So we start with that. You can see I've got all this extra stuff hanging out, so I'm going to trim back most of that. I'm not going to trim it all the way down to the box, and I'll show you why in a minute. So we're going to go ahead and trim that. You can see I've got this stuff all still sticking up, so then I'll take a knife or a pair of scissors or something, just sort of fold that over as I tuck it in, and that's going to give me even more security to kind of protect my box as this wet foam sits in there and maybe tries to leak into the wood. I'm just going to tuck that in there, kind of fold it over. Never want to see your mechanics. Always want to hide what is actually holding your flowers together, making them look nice. Nobody wants to see how that's done. It needs to look natural and beautiful from all angles. Kind of don't want to give away the ugly parts of it. So right now we have a box of wet soaked foam. You can see I've used leftover pieces, so not too pretty underneath here, but it'll serve its purpose. I have tucked in my foil lining and then my plastic lining just to double protect my box. And then I'm going to take some pieces of some greenery that I kind of had left over from something else. I would always, for the best cut and in order for your flowers to continue to take up water in the best way, after your design is done, I would encourage you to cut with a knife. That's always going to give you the sharpest cut to your stem, which will then take up the most amount of water. But if you're starting out, don't even try a knife for now. You'll cut yourself. Just wait on that. A nice sharp pair of scissors even can work really well for beginners. Make sure they're nice and sharp, because a dull blade is always what you're going to cut yourself on, because you're putting pressure and yanking around on stuff, and notoriously you're gonna jab and cut your skin. So just get a sharp pair. I've actually found some nice sharp pairs for $1 at the Dollar Tree, and I use them for classes and stuff. Sometimes these are a little bit nicer, but a sharp pair of snips or scissors for $1, you know, you can't go wrong. So I'm going to start with just some simple greenery. This is Grevillea, which is one of my favorites. It's got lots of lines and texture to it. And we just need some small pieces. We just want to kind of cover our base, cover up the mechanics, like I said, of our wet foam. So I'm going to cut off a few pieces. When you're starting out, just go ahead and cut off a few to start, so you're not trying to do a bunch of guesswork as you go as to where to cut off. If you cut down at your intersection, where that little joint is, just cut right there, and then you'll have a nice full little piece. You don't want to cut and cut and cut tiny little pieces and try to completely cover this. I've seen a lot of new designers do that, or even when I've worked in some shops, they'll spend, you know, 20 minutes just covering every tiny piece of foam. That's not necessary. The greenery is just to start to cover and to start to give us a line of what we're going for with our arrangement. So I am going to, I don't know how well you can see this, but I'm going to start by just kind of starting to form my shape of my arrangement. I'm just doing a low lying. It's going to come out beyond the box just a little bit, and probably come up, you know, the design rule is you want to come up another 2/3 above this base piece, which is your third. But this is just a nice low-lying arrangement to sit in an entryway. Like I said, people come in, they want to see some bright color, something fresh and happy, because, you know, they're going somewhere to visit friends and relatives where it's not always a happy situation. So let's just add in, we've cut these nice little full pieces off of our Grevillea. I'm going to start out kind of creating a little bit of a line. So when I come here, I'm not going to go straight up. I want to come angled out a little bit, so that, again, I'm starting to kind of form the shape as I'm covering up some of the foam. So this piece here, it's a little long for what I wanted, so I'll snip off a little bit. I'm going to put him in the middle, so that's going to kind of give me my line to show me about the tallest degree that I want to go to for this piece. And this is kind of more like a half and half, which isn't typically what you do in design. But you got to think always about, before you even start, you know, what is the purpose of this piece that I'm doing? Like, is this going to set at a nice event where people are sitting at a table and they might actually be staring at the detail and the color and texture of this design for 3 or 4 hours as somebody is talking or there's an event going on? That's a little bit different than just creating, you know, a burst of color and texture for somebody to see as they're on their way to something else. So think about that before you even begin your design. Where is it going to sit? So what would the size be that would fit into its environment? How much of my base piece do I want to show? You know, maybe this was a special piece from your grandmother that you want to show everybody coming to the family reunion that day. You know, look what I did with grandma's piece. That was so special. So if that's the case, you'd want to still reveal and be able to see most of your box, even though you've accented it with a pretty design. But in this case, this is just kind of my standard base piece. I don't really care if they see all of this. So going back to, I know y'all are going to get a kick out of my janky video, but like I always tell my family, I'm here for your entertainment. So I have some leftover little onesie pieces. I just told you not to waste your time on those, but I don't want to waste material that's that's laying here. So I'm going to go ahead and use up a few of those. Cut off at a joint again. So now I've got a big full piece. This will take up a lot of visual space, which a lot of times is what I'm going for. You know, if I cut all these apart, I've got to put in 6 or 7 little tiny insertions, and none of those are really doing me any good as far as forming a shape or covering my mechanic. So I'm going to go with this guy. I'm going to go back towards the middle. When you go into your design, a lot of beginners, it's like, well, if I'm going sideways, then I need to go just like this, just straight in, you know, just, I was thinking about angling just a little bit. It's going to give you a lot more visual interest, and it'll give you a better shape to your overall design. If you're angling a little bit, you'll fill out more area, and it'll be more pleasing to look at. So that's just something to think about. Okay, let's get going on this. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-cut a little bit more of my grevillea. Again, I don't want to worry about covering every teeny tiny piece of foam today. I'm just creating a shape and starting out a little bit of covering up my mechanic. So again, I'm going to go over here to the side of this metal guy, but I don't necessarily want to go just straight to the side. I want to angle him a little bit. So right now we have, we got a few more pieces here of the grevillea we could use. When I'm coming into my side here, I purposely cut my foam even with my base piece, my box, so that I didn't have to use up a ton of greenery and material to try to cover that up on the side. Takes a little bit more skill. When you're new and starting out, I'd go ahead and cut it maybe an inch or so above your piece, because it'll be kind of easier for you to angle things and to work with. Once you get a little more experienced, go ahead, don't use up so much foam or material to cover, and then just think about when you're going in, angling it really good in there, but making sure you're always getting into the foam a good inch, inch and a half. You know, I've been in classes and things where we've gone around afterwards and looked at people's mechanics and their finished piece, and was really surprised how many times when you go back and start pulling on the pieces, they had only gone into their foam, you know, maybe quarter, half of an inch. So when you go to move that piece around, say you have an event or something going on, those pieces are going to be falling out for one thing, but the more important thing really is that they're not deep enough into that foam that they're even going to be able to drink water. So that's not a good mechanic. You always want to make sure stuff's in there really good. Inch and a half, you know, even more if you've got a big piece, way down in there, so they can really take up whatever water is in your piece. So we got a few more pieces. I'm going to go ahead and use these to, again, kind of angle out the sides a little bit, covering up mechanics, creating a shape. Come out here a little bit. So you can see I haven't covered a lot of foam, but I've created a shape. have covered some of what may end up showing on the side that I'd have to come back and fill in later after I do the floral. So now I have some of this dollar, oh my gosh, I've lost my mind. I believe, yeah, dollar eucalyptus. I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, this, you know, looking at the shape of this, this is long and drapey, long pieces. Whereas the grevillea is kind of short and full and more of a stumpy type material, so it's a good filler and it provides a lot of texture and interest. This guy is just kind of long, droopy pieces. So when I cut him, even though I'm just doing him as, you know, kind of a filler at this point, I'm gonna kind of go dual purpose. And when I cut this, again, I'm cutting at a joint. You know, I don't want to cut up here because then when I go to use this next piece, it'll be wasted because I have cut into that. So now I'll have more pieces to use. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm going to go ahead and cut kind of a long piece here. Cut off a few more pieces. again, I'm just really, my point of today is to just kind of start to show you a little bit about some basic mechanics. I'm hoping to do a lot more classes come early spring before we get really busy with wedding season. People ask me about classes. When I've scheduled them at the studio, I've had trouble getting a big enough number count to justify doing the class. So I keep letting people know as they contact me, you know, hey, if you want to have a class and you want to seriously learn a little bit about floral design, you know, I need a minimum of 5 people, including you as the host, to make it worth our time to set up the class and come to you. Sometimes I can offer you the studio, sometimes we have too much going on and there's just not enough space here. So you can set it up at your home. You can decide, hey, you know, my point of this is I really seriously want to learn a little bit about design, some basic stuff. Or is my point really just to have fun with my girlfriends, you know, have a glass of wine, create something, whatever, learn a bit, not learn a little bit, you know, whatever. If that's kind of more your point, we do that too, but you know, we need to kind of chat ahead of time about what's kind of your purpose of doing that, and then we can plan the class and the time around that. I don't want to spend 2 hours teaching very intensively about floral design, although I could talk about it 24 hours a day. If really you're just kind of wanting to have fun and learn a couple things. So I wanted to fit with what you're wanting to do. That's better for both of us, obviously. So anyway, back to this. So I got my long droopy pieces. He's looking a little brown and not too good. So I think I'm gonna, this guy here, go ahead and get him off there. Now when I go to put this in my box, just to add interest, I'd like him to droop off the side a little bit. I think one of the really pretty things in a very, you know, good design that seems exciting to your eye, oftentimes some of the pieces will come off of the arrangement or the piece and they'll actually droop all the way down onto the surface that they're sitting on. And it gives a very artistic look to it. If you look at some of the older paintings of floral arrangements and designs, I'm drawing a blank on the era that I'm trying to think of, but if you look at that, a lot of times in those photos, you'll have pieces come up and around and droop all the way down, touching your surface that they're sitting on, and it looks really elegant. So anyway, when I come in with this guy, I'm going to pay attention to where is this droop going to end up once I've inserted it in here. If I put it way over here, he'll droop down and he'd hang on the surface probably, but that's not the kind of style I'm going for today. I'm just wanting to kind of keep this simple. So this is going to be more about, again, covering a little bit of my mechanic and creating a little bit more of a softer line than the straight up and down I have right now of my grevillea pieces. So I'm going to actually come in a little bit more and not right on the side. I'm going to come in about here to my foam. Again, make sure he's in there a good 1.5 inches. So he's not drooping down. He's just creating more of a soft line and interest. And anytime you can involve something in your design that has some movement, you know, if this was sitting in an entry and maybe people open the door, walk by, brush against it, or it catches a little bit of wind, these are going to dance around a little bit. And if you notice, particularly in wedding photos and video, I notice more and more how that little bit of movement just adds so much life and interest to your photograph or your video. So we're going to start with that, and then I'm going to go ahead, I've done one on this side, so now I'm going to repeat and do one over here. Especially when you're a beginner, you know, I would say try to go with more of an equal style piece than to do more of an asymmetrical or, you know, heavier and taller on this end, lower on this end, which is a lot of what I do for, not so much for weddings, but if it's like a piece for an event or a home or something, you'll get to that point where you'll be more comfortable with more of an asymmetrical, but for now I think it's easier for you to eyeball if it's kind of even side to side. So if I'm doing a piece of him over here. I think I'm, you know, well, I'll go ahead and try him over here. So again, I'm kind of coming in a little bit on the foam, 1.5 inches in, and then letting him drape and kind of dance around. Okay, so that's what I have so far. A little bit of movement, a little bit of mechanics coverage. Let me see what else I have for my foam coverage. I tell you what, I'm gonna stop here. We've talked a little bit about mechanics. We've talked about choosing your piece to start with, how to kind of start to base and create a line, and kind of what, you know, thinking about your materials you put in there, because what's the purpose of them? What are they doing in here? I'm gonna stop with that. This was kind of, like I said, a last minute choice to make this video on a Sunday afternoon. You guys let me know. Is this something, you know, am I boring you to tears? Not really interested? Or is it something, it's like, yeah, I'd like to know more about that. I'd like to kind of understand why, when I look at a piece, you know, why do I like that? Why do I not like that? And maybe just for entertainment, like I said, I'm really entertaining. You want to watch more of these things, or maybe you actually want to learn, and this has enticed you to think about coming and taking a class. That's awesome too. Maybe it's something fun you'd like to do with your girlfriends one night. You know, we do arrangements. A lot of times we do flower crowns together. Whatever you want to do. You want to do a fall wreath, holiday, whatever, let us know. We are doing a class at Wine Styles in Ankeny. Gosh, I want to say that starts at 6:30. I'm not sure on that, but if you go on my business Facebook page, which is Lavender Blue Floral, Instagram handle, same thing, at Lavender Blue Floral, you'll see on there. You can also go to Wine Styles Ankeny and look to see what the details of that event are. I believe it's December 15th. They have a great little shop with tons of atmosphere, tons of really cute ideas for the holidays, and we will be there making a really cool, actually hang on and I'll show you what this looks like. Okay, so we are going to be making this guy. Get my stuff over here. I don't know how well you can see it in the video, but it's probably at least a couple of feet long, maybe 2.5 feet. But it is a combination of fresh cotton, fresh pine cones. The fresh cotton is a new resource that I have found. I'm super excited about doing some more pieces with this type of work and hopefully selling them like at boutiques or places that would have a similar look, kind of that rustic chic, farmhouse chic type of look to them. Let me know if you know anybody that does that kind of stuff. And then we have some of these kind of white bleached fall leaves, another really cool thing that you don't see every day. And then the base of it, let's flip this around and show you, is some twigs. I love to use zip ties. They are my best friend so many times. If you have a handful of zip ties and you know a little bit about design shape, it's amazing what you can create. So this is what we're going to be doing. Again, Ankeny, Wine Styles Ankeny, December 15th. If you can't make that, give me a call, shoot me an email. You can DM me on @LavenderBlueFloral and say, hey, I really liked that. I want you to just go ahead and make one for me for my home. Hey, my friend has a shop. They're doing a holiday pop-up. These would be awesome. Whatever. Or just gaze at it in this video. Think about it. Anyway, I told you I was entertaining. So that is it for today, guys. Please give me some feedback, good, bad, ugly. Like I'm kind of looking today, but I decided to just go for it. Let me know your thoughts. If this was dumb and you don't care to see any more of it, that is good. But if you're interested in seeing more, hearing more about design, about classes, just about some simple fun things to make for the holiday. Like I said, DM me at Lavender Blue Floral. You can find my email and all of that stuff on there too. Check out our website. We're adding new styled shoots all the time. We've got some amazing stuff coming out in the next couple of weeks. And that is it for today. See ya.